Okay, so I am about to start up one of my dad's old steam engines. You can see there in the background I've got some denatured alcohol that I'm using for fuel. And right now I'm lighting a match that I'm going to use for lighting the engine fuel. The idea behind a steam engine is the fuel is consumed, thus heating up the water in the boiler. When the water starts to boil, it makes steam. The steam pressure builds up inside of the boiler, and then it gets transferred here to the compression chamber. The compression chamber, when it builds up enough pressure, is going to drive this piston. It drives the piston downward, and once the piston reaches its lowest point, the inertial movement is going to keep it going a tiny bit more. Now, on this far side, you see the flywheel. The inertial movement of the flywheel will carry the piston arm up to the top, where the pressure will again build up here in the compression chamber, which, when there's enough steam built up, will again drive the piston and the whole cycle repeats. What we're doing right now is just waiting a couple of minutes for the water in the boiler to heat up enough that it'll make sufficient steam to drive the process. This is going to take a couple of minutes. You can see I use the more environmentally friendly denatured alcohol. I don't know if it's actually more environmentally friendly or if instead that's just a marketing trick, but whichever it is, I use that brand. It costs the same as the one that didn't say it was environmentally friendly, so what the hey. Alright, I've started with warm water, which should make my time to boil much more quick. And I'm now starting to hear just a little bit of sound coming from the boiler, indicating that we're starting to have some action in the water, which is good because I didn't all the way fill the fuel chamber at the absolute bottom, so the burner is going to run out before too much longer. Hopefully we've got enough fuel in there that the burner will light the boiler just enough to create enough steam so that we can drive the engine before the whole thing runs out of fuel and I have to record this whole thing again. Starting to hear some boiling. When it seems like there might be enough steam built up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the flywheel just a bit in its natural motor direction. That hopefully will jumpstart the action that we talked about before, and then the engine will continue to run until the fuel source is exhausted down here. I don't know if the camera is picking up the sound of that boiling, but we are starting to have some action now. I want to mention to you, those of you at home who might be watching this for some reason, denatured alcohol, though it's a wonderful clean burning fuel, is something you have to be really careful with. I spilled some here on the counter, and when it touched that flame, or rather when its vapors touched the flame, the whole thing ignited. It also burns next to invisibly during the daylight, so you have to be really careful with that. This is the same fuel that we use in marine stoves. Okay, I'm assuming if you can hear my voice, you can also hear that boiling action that's going on. Fairly soon now, we should have enough steam that it'll actually drive the motor. I'm going to go ahead and give it a try to see if the flywheel will start the engine. Not yet. We'll let a little bit more pressure build up. You see here is the emergency pressure release valve, the safety valve, as opposed to the compression chamber there that actually drives the motor. Not yet. Just now starting to really boil. And of course, just like when you're making tea, it's not until it really boils that it starts to really create steam, which is going to drive this whole thing. Now, I may not have tightened the safety valve enough the last time I took it apart for cleaning, but we'll see. Alright, you see the steam starting to come out of the compression chamber? That's a good sign. We're very close now. You see it's starting to do a few rotations on its own. And now, yes, the engine's running on its own. I'll give you a side view. It's really quite cool. I'll come over to this side. Obviously the fuel's still going down there. And the flame is starting to creep around the edge of the firebox, so we'll watch that. This is where all the action's happening. Now in a much larger model, we would have a belt coming off that side of the flywheel. That belt would in turn drive a rotor on the accessory, whether it was a little saw or another little piece of machinery, and that's how you get the engines to actually do work. You see the steam being relieved from the compression chamber. That's what allows the piston to go back into the compression chamber after a single stroke. And that's how she runs. I'm going to blow it out quite soon now. We don't want it to overheat. Thank you for watching.